All right, so I had an idea. I haven't seen that many people. I haven't seen basically anybody do this. Probably because it's a bad idea. It doesn't work that well. I'm gonna do it anyway, though. And I figured I would just read Wikipedia articles, right? And maybe just do a bit of research. I was like, ooh, I could be like a research guy, and I could just do a bunch of research on different things. This is scrolling really fast, so it probably is super blurry and awful. Hopefully I can scroll a bit slower. But I had kind of an interest in like random utopian communes that appeared throughout the United States in like the 19th century. A lot of the times in like the 1830s, 1840s, this one is. Because they keep cropping up whenever I'm like reading about different stuff. They just keep showing up. That's just my area of interest. So I figured I'd read about one of them. Most of them seem to come from this fella named Charles Fourier, who isn't linked directly here, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, he's got like a bunch of associations. Some of them are called phalanxes. This one's called a phalanx. And basically what that was just Charles Fourier was like a proto-socialist guy. Like before Marx was really popular, there was this Charles Fourier guy. And he would just have a bunch of writings about socialism and whatnot, and people really liked it. So some people would go and start communes based on his ideas. And this is one of those. I was originally going to do one called La Reunion, which is near Dallas. It's like a ghost town, because they did one there. They had a settlement there. All of this is just Europeans that are socialists going to the United States and trying to start their own thing in the wilderness a lot of the time. And it usually doesn't go terribly well. We're going to see how this one goes. I have read basically nothing about this one, so this should have some genuine reactions from me regarding the North American Phalanx, which is an epic name. It's a really good name, I gotta say. But yeah, they would go to... One of them went to Dallas. A few of them went to Nauvoo, Illinois, which is one of the craziest cities in world history. Nauvoo, Illinois is so weird. It's got some crazy history for being a very small town, smaller than the place that I live in. and yeah, they went all over the place. So these guys, let's see what happened with them. The secular utopian socialist commune, located in Colts Neck Township. Oh, that's a very pretty picture. It's a township in Monmouth County. Okay, so yeah, we're in New Jersey. That's where we are right now, New Jersey, the most densely populated U.S. state, actually. It's kind of fun. Community was the longest lived of about 30 Fourierist associations in the United States, which has its own Wikipedia article, which is very interesting. I'll have to look at that. It emerged during a brief burst of popularity in the 1840s. Okay. So it was established in 1843. It included active participation of this writer, Albert Brisbane, who is another socialist. They're all just a bunch of utopian socialists. This guy wrote Social Destiny of Man. They always have fun names for stuff. Like, that sounds awesome, dude. Social Destiny of Man. Very fanciful thinking, for sure, from this Albert Brisbane fellow. And the newspaper publisher, Horace Greeley. This dude, I think, had a... yeah, he was a candidate of the New Liberal Republican Party. Yeah, this guy shows up a lot in American history from this time period. He's also really funny looking. I don't know, there's just something about him. He just looks kind of goofy. Yeah, they're leading figures in the Fourierist movement. So it was disbanded in 1856, following a catastrophic fire. That's always how these things end, too. They usually disband because of some, like, scourge of the sky comes down upon them. Like, they just get smited by God, it seems. The other one that I was going to do in Dallas, which I decided against, they were getting attacked by Texas weather. Like, a blizzard happened in Texas, and then they got attacked by a drought, and then a sea of grasshoppers comes and destroys all their crops. It's just straight out of Exodus. Anyway, so a catastrophic fire occurs, and it destroys a number of the community's productive enterprises. At the time of its termination, it was the last of about 30 of these associations. So yeah, it was the longest living. That's good stuff. Good job, guys. New Jersey seems to be your place. You guys should all go to New Jersey, I guess. 3-story wooden structure stood vacant until it was destroyed by a fire. Okay, so yeah, a lot of fires happening. These guys are always attacked by fire. I guess that's the building then? That's a pretty cool looking building. Look at that. That's a big one. Damn, that's a huge one. Residential edifice of it. So they just have like a compound, I guess. This is gonna be like Waco. They're gonna have a compound and it's set ablaze. I mean, that's basically what would happen if this took place in the modern era. If this was taking place in the 90s, like the 1990s, this would definitely be attacked by, like, the ATF or something. Anyways, do we want to learn about Charles Fourier? I guess. We're gonna have to learn about Charles Fourier. It's interesting, actually, I didn't realize this. All of these utopian communes that are based off his ideas, happening right after his death, basically. They all kind of started in the 1830s, and it's like, he's about to die. So he really came into his own around the end of his life. I don't think anybody in 1770s really cared about him. Probably because he was a young child. Believed that the structure of modern civilization led to poverty, unemployment, isolation, and unhappiness, and that people would be better off living in organized communal societies rather than individual family units. So, I mean, that's basic communist ideas right there, I should think, right? Maybe there's obviously been additions and subtractions probably that have occurred throughout the years. All sorts of different ideas. But yeah, that seems pretty basic, kind of underlying assumptions of communism there. He developed the idea of a phalanstery, which is a type of building designed for a self-contained utopian community, ideally consisting of 500 to 2,000 people working together for mutual benefit. So basically just a compound. He calls it a phalanx, which is a military term. I'm not sure why he decided to go for that, but maybe it had different connotations back then. I feel like phalanx is a military term, though, I think. Okay. 1,620 people organized on the basis of a joint stock company. Okay. That's interesting. Joint stock company. Alright, sure. They, never pursued in France during his lifetime, his ideas found practical realization in the United States of the 1840s and 1850s, as a result of the books and newspaper columns of this dude. So Albert Brisbane, this American fella, who I keep thinking is Australian, because that's a big city in Australia, but he's an American, and he's reading about Charles Fourier, and he's spreading his ideas in the United States. That's basically what we got here. He translated, distilled, and adapted his ideas for an American audience, largely through the pages of Horace Greeley's New York Tribune. So he stirred popular enthusiasm for the French intellectuals' ideas and for the formation of local associations. Okay. A general call was issued in New York City by Brisbane, Greeley, and others, seeking local organizations of Fourierist groups. This call inspired the formation in the summer of 1843 of a group calling itself the Albany branch of North American Phalanx. 20 families participated in the official planning of the group. Dozens of families formally subscribed to the draft constitution. So they've got a full constitution and everything. If allowed to thrive, I guess if their communities weren't destroyed, these guys probably would have been a real problem for the United States government. That would have been a real headache for the federal government to deal with. All around the country, there are these tiny little communes that are self-governing. Yeah, that'd just be a nightmare for sure. Believed by the first participants that considerable capital would be raised for establishment of an American cooperative association, and then a number of branch organizations would emerge throughout the New York region, inspired by Albany. Neither of these expectations were realized. Okay. As it was only with great difficulty that a sum just under 7,000 was raised, and no other local associations would immediately follow. Majority of Phalanx's financing came from outside sources. Over time, 61% of the association's stock was held by outsiders, 527 shares held by a sympathetic consortium of merchants from New York City. Despite clearly inadequate resources, the Albany branch, headed by Charles Sears, obviously this guy is the founder of Sears, the department store. He probably isn't. He probably has no association with it, but it's funny to just be like, yeah, that's probably what that guy was doing. He's got the same last name, right? It's gotta be. And Nathan Starks decided to persevere, and a search began for suitable agricultural lands upon which the local phalanstery might be established. Okay, so they got a domain of 673 acres, or 2.72 kilometers squared. It was located near the small town of Red Bank, New Jersey. Oh, here's a stairwell. This is inside their building before it was destroyed by a fire. That is a tight hallway. Gosh, look at that. It looks like really creepy. This is a good image. Gosh, it looks really creepy when it's all run down like this. When was this taken? Does it say? I don't think it says. Photographed by the U.S. National Park Service for Historic American Buildings. I don't think it says the date. Oh wait, 1972, that's the date. Okay. That's what it looked like in 1972 before it was hit by a fire. Anyways, see, it's interesting. They have like a company going on. They're doing a lot of stocks and whatnot. Of this sum, 5,000 of the community's funds were invested as a down payment, leaving a mortgage of 9,000 to be repaid over time. I wonder what that is in modern day money. Probably a good amount more than 9,000. Because, inflation exists. Barely 2,000 remained for the construction of buildings and the purchase of working animals, farm implements, and other necessary goods. Colonization began in September 1843. We got 6 families. Okay. They crowded into 2 houses, but they're big houses. They're massive buildings. From what I saw, at least. Previously existing on the property. Oh, okay. So they just stole buildings from random people? Probably not. Temporary housing was rapidly constructed to provide accommodations for the rest of the party that winter. Others arrived at the site in 1844 with a total of 100 people, 20 families in the residence. So at the peak, it was 150 people in residence, including children, 120. Okay. After 1 year of existence, a sawmill had been constructed. Okay, so they've got a sawmill now. That's pretty good. Nearly ready for operation. Blacksmith shop, machine shop, steam engine already operational. In addition, the community included stables, animal and wagon sheds, carpentry shops, a school, children's daycare area, guest cottages, landscaped gardens and paths, artificial pond for bathing. Dude, these guys have an awesome little setup here. Supply of ice in the winter? Wait, why would you want a supply of ice in the winter? I feel like you got enough ice in the winter. I mean, I don't know I don't live in New Jersey, so I have no idea what the weather is like there. Maybe you do need a supply of ice in the winter. What is the source for this? Just records on the Wayback Machine? It's really unfortunate that everything has to be on the Wayback Machine. Because it just feels like the fact that it's on the Wayback Machine means that it's already slowly being lost, and like the Wayback Machine has had some problems as of late. I don't know specifically what, but I feel like these are going to disappear at some point. That's what I'm worried about. And it's like, where are the physical records for these things? We have no idea. At least I don't, and maybe somebody knows where they are. Most of the household heads living in the Phalanx at the time of its formation had either passing or practical knowledge of agriculture. That's different from it's different from some other ones that I've seen, where that was their main failing, was they had no idea how agriculture works. They're just socialists, but they're like, I don't know how to plant things. And so yeah, that was how the Fruitlands commune failed. That was in like Massachusetts. The reason they failed is because of the agriculture. They just didn't know how to do it. There was only one dude in there that knew how to do it, Joseph Palmer. He's a great fella. He's got a really cool story. Anyways, the land was deemed quite suitable for fruit farming. Good percentage of available land was subsequently committed to fruit trees, apples, peaches, pears, quince. Nobody talks about quince anymore. Nobody cares about quince. Oh well, maybe one day quince will be popular again. I feel like I've never seen quince. I probably have. Nobody cares about quince. Grapevines were planted. A new 3-story addition was constructed. Oh my gosh. They added a common area, long halls, subsequently had housing sufficient for each family to be allotted a parlor and 2 bedrooms. So they're basically just running a massive hotel, like a communist hotel. That's kind of how this is seeming to me. Moderately successful during its first 7 years of operation. Annual dividends ranging from 4.4% to 5.6% on capital invested, as well as hourly wages to all workers of the community. Do I really want to learn about their labor and compensation? This is all just numbers and really boring stuff. We're just gonna skip that. Yeah, I don't care about that. Daily life, though? I gotta learn about their daily life. Collective living and rational division of domestic responsibility was a primary tenet of Fourierism. During its first 2 or 3 years of existence, extreme frugality was deemed necessary, and only scanty meals were served at the common table. So they're rationing already. That's classic communists. The instant that they set up, they're like, well, we better ration. Because, there's only a limited amount of resources. That's an important idea in communism, I think. Only a limited amount of resources, so we gotta make sure that we have only scanty meals. We gotta be very frugal with our money and our resources. Let's hope that nobody starved. The situation was further complicated by the presence of significant numbers of associationists with specific dietary beliefs, right? Because there's a lot of them that are like only vegans, or they only consume certain things. Maybe there was Jewish people in there. contingents of vegetarians, Christian sectarians who forswore the use of all products produced at the cost of the sacrifice of life. This thing, too, is that a lot of this stuff is seen as, like, modern ideas cropping up. Like, I've seen this. This is, like, the PETA people, right? But, this stuff has existed for a long time. Veganism is popular even back then. This stuff has been around for quite a while, I must say. The effect was disruptive, moderate, and extreme vegetarians. Dude. That's just funny to me. Extreme vegetarians. That just makes it sound like they're gonna burn down a building that has meat in it or something. Agitating against the slaughter of animals and consumption of meat. So maybe they were just, like, angry at all the people that were eating meat in the compound. That must have been a fun experience. You're just trying to enjoy a chicken drumstick, and then these guys are attacking you. The dietary dilemma was ultimately resolved by the replacement of the common table with a restaurant. Board was provided on a la carte, which is it's individual dishes from a menu, okay, rather than through a common menu. Oh, okay. Other benefit was that food waste was reduced. Charles Sears is telling us that food waste was reduced. Good job, Charles Sears. Good luck with that department store, by the way. Hope it goes well for you. Just as there was difference in eating habits, a range of religious affiliations existed. So you got Unitarians, which I imagine is probably the majority of them. It's mostly Unitarians that are into this stuff. But we got some Presbyterians, some Quakers. Quakers are pretty popular with this kind of stuff too. Baptists, Episcopalians. Yeah, there are some Jews. Okay, I figured there would be. Shakers and then atheists, agnostics. Religious matters were frequently the object of discussion and debate. Heated division over religious topics does not seem to have occurred in the community until 1853. That's ominous. What happened in 1853? The climate sharpening as the end of the institution approached. The Phalanx maintained a nursery, combination of which served to significantly reduce the domestic duties of female members. Okay. Appreciation for collectivist idea. Why is it doing this? God, stop it. In the minds of the communities, 30 to 40 children encouraged to work cooperatively in organizing amusements, forest expeditions, camping trips, and craft projects. Oh, that sounds fun. Sounds like a jolly good time. Entertainment was more formally recognized or organized in 1849 with the formation of the Festal series. What does that mean, Festal series? I guess it's just fests. They're having festive stuff. Staging musical concerts, dramatic presentations, and dances. Okay. In addition, the community had a vibrant, informal, social atmosphere. Nightly walks in the woods. Oh man, the bugs have got to be brutal for a nightly walk in the woods. Would you really want to do that? Card games. Singing around the piano. God, this just sounds so jolly. This sounds like a good time. Greeley's New York Tribune and other newspapers, agricultural publications, maintained a reading room. Steady stream of visitors infused new ideas, earnest discussions into the small rural society. It's weird, though, because it's not really rural in the sense of, like, everybody lives in a very compact area. They just live in this little compound, really. So I don't know if I would call that rural, necessarily. When I think of rural, I usually think of a town that's kind of, like, sparse, you know? Sparsely populated. Each family has its own little, like, house, you know? And it's far away from big cities and stuff. Right? Because I always thought rural and urban is mostly just the density of it, rather than, like, the population, maybe? Or just, like, its location. I feel like it's the density, right? I guess it doesn't work with the density, though. Because, I mean, you can have some pretty sparsely populated cities that wouldn't be considered rural. I don't know. Whatever. The atmosphere of the North American Phalanx and other associations, which survived more than a year or two, resembled that of a vibrant New England farming village. It was later reckoned. Who reckoned that? Guarneri reckoned it in the Utopian alternative on page 214. Okay. Governance. 1843 Constitution provided for administration through a central council composed of a president, vice president, treasurer, 12 directors, executive officers serving 1-year terms, and council members serving staggered 2-year terms. Originally, only stockholders voted in elections. All members were given a vote in 1848 amendment. Heads of each series were granted ex officio status as members of the Central Council. Suffrage was universal, both industrial and political. with regular working members of the group entitled to vote within that group without regard to gender. I wonder what their age was for voting, though. Surely the children aren't voting. That's just straight from Sears, I guess. Here we go. This is the fun part. Decline. This is where it all falls apart. Alright, the Phalanx, like the Fourierist movement in general, was ultimately undermined by its utopian basis. General creed, which as one scholar observed, promised too much and required too little of its adherents. Interesting. So we weren't asking enough of the people involved. The disparity between promises of social transformation and economic abundance and the realities of primitive agriculture and crude living conditions ended with the disillusionment of starry-eyed communitarians and their inflated expectations. I like calling them starry-eyed communitarians. That's a fun phrase. Work was hard, the process of development slow and difficult. Communal life in close quarters presented a whole host of social pressures which undermined community stability. See, that was my main thing, too. It was just like, the close quarters of it all, really. Is that necessary? Is it necessary that everybody needs to be in that compound? I feel like you could spread people out more, give them their own kind of freedom. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Labor division and wage calculation also provided inefficient in practice. President Charles Shears noting that members of the Phalanx were so preoccupied with work allocation and scheduling that our days were spent in labor and our nights in legislation. That's fun, I like that. A regimen which sapped the vitality of the community. The community's unity was also undermined by an inequality of workloads and compensation. That's interesting. You would think that that wouldn't occur in a communist or socialist type society. Carl Guarneri, who I guess is just a scholar on this, is going to observe. This is coming from his book, page 195. Okay. Might have to read that in its full. For Fourier, the notion that some harmonians would work less than others demonstrated true passional freedom. Life in the American phalanxes, however, required hard work and self-sacrifice. As their communities struggled through indebtedness, chronic shortages, and crop failures, associationists found themselves undermined by their own propaganda. Damn. The phalanxes never solved the problem of what to do about those who do not assume their share of the work. They had no prison systems, I guess. No discipline in this place. Wage rates were another source of discord, machine operators formally complaining in 1853 that their wages paid as members of the Phalanx ran significantly behind wages for comparable work in the competitive industry outside the association. So it's kind of struggling from like all the problems the Soviet Union had as well. Because like the competitive capitalist industry outside is dominating their communist industry. And so now they're complaining about their wages because the capitalists are doing better in that current time period. So that's curious. Is that also coming from him? No, this is coming directly from Sears. Okay. Moreover, the wages paid to working members of the Phalanx proved barely adequate to cover room, board, and clothing for families with children, causing the loss of many of the same and undermining of hopes, and passing the community to a new generation. The Phalanx was hard hit by the loss of its chief carpenter, a skilled horticulturalist, and other leading members in the 1853 succession to join the fledgling Raritan Bay Union. That's another one that I've never heard of before, another utopian community in New Jersey. So they go from 1853 to 1860. So they're like splitting off too. They're having like sectarian divisions at this point. In short order, Raritan Bay members and financial supporters owned fully 1/6 of the Phalanx's stock, and it weakened their resolve to continue. And then we have a dissolution. There's a historic marker. Let's read this. Site of the 1844 Cooperative Agricultural Community, founded by Albert Brisbane, modeled after Fourier. It was successful until it was destroyed by fire in 1854. So that's kind of looming over the entire story. There's going to be a fire, which is very exciting. I hope that gets talked about in the Wikipedia article. Oh, here we go. Disaster came on September 10th, 1854. A fire swept the colony's mill and all its contents. No insurance was recovered. The community found itself facing $30,000 in accumulated debt. No ready means of repayment. Oh, so they have a debt crisis as well. Some 9,000 remained unpaid on the original mortgage. Additional bills accumulated for a new engine and boiler for the mill. At the time of the fire, the mill had housed a large quantity of wheat purchased on credit, for which the Phalanx was financially responsible. Horace Greeley offered to loan the association $12,000 for construction of a replacement facility. Horace Greeley is really just trying to keep them afloat. Good job, Horace Greeley. He's helping out. He's trying his best. Members of the Phalanx ultimately decided not to take advantage of this offer. They just turned down Greeley. Why? It would have boosted the debt load and necessitated another arduous reconstruction period. I guess they just didn't want to do more work. They just gave up. In 1855, stockholders' meetings, plans began to be made either to sell part of the land to satisfy the debt or to sell the community in whole. We're not going to get to Victor Considerant just yet. Efforts were made to sell the Phalanx to group organizing around Fourierist adherent. Okay, so Victor Prosper Considerant. He did a lot of stuff. There's all sorts of different people that did this kind of stuff. He's one of them. I haven't done too much research into that guy, though. It's to act as a staging point for newcomers to the new colonization project in the state of Texas. Oh, okay, so that maybe they went off to La Reunion. Who knows? No such agreement could be reached, however. Instead, in June 1855, the stockholders voted the community should liquidate its assets and terminate its existence. In October, community land was surveyed and divided into parcels ranging in size from 5 to 150 acres, sold at auction. Oh, that would have been a cool auction to go to. Together with all movable property, the total of 80,000, was raised from the sale of the Phalanx's land and property, with the proceeds divided and distributed to stockholders. Okay. The sole survivor of the Fourierist boom of the 1840s was formally terminated. And the Legacy, second most publicized association, surpassed in general interest only by the Brook Farm and West Roxbury, which I wish I could do more research. I tried to do this one and look more into it, but unfortunately this page is just on the entire community. It's on the entire neighborhood, and it was kind of hard to find the specific movement within it. I'll look into that more maybe later. It stood until 1972, where there's another fire. 2 structures, both private homes from the original Phalanx property, survived. One of them, constructed around 1851, was the cottage of Marcus Spring, a merchant from Brooklyn, who was a supporter of the Phalanx. He and his family used the cottage as their summer home. Mr. Spring was not a resident member, he was one of the largest shareholders. Okay, I see. Collection of records, maps, drawings, and blueprints. Huh, okay. Well, that's all of that, I guess. There's also Wisconsin Phalanx. Man, there's all sorts of these. They're all over the place. Owenite. This is Robert Owen. He's a Scottish guy. He's very similar to Fourier. So there's even Owenite communities. Gosh, that's a gorgeous picture there. That's really cool. Anyways, that's the story of the North American Phalanx. A lot of money stuff that I'm not really adept with. I'm not a big guy when it comes to money and shareholders and capital invested. I have no idea about most of that stuff. But it's a curious tale nonetheless. I love this stairway. God, that's a good stairway. Well, that's my idea. Let's see where this takes me. Maybe I'll do more of these. This could be good. It could be good.